In this video we have a bit of Star Wars news, but first I want to talk about some elements of Chapter 23 in more depth. First of all, the episode was titled The Spies, and that's plural, and as many fans pointed out, apart from Elia Kane, who is this referring to? Now I put forward in my full episode breakdown, it could be the Armourer, who is secretly working for Gideon. There are too many plot elements that are convenient surrounding her. The horns on Gideon's helmet and her helmet could be a giveaway, but also, it's too much of a coincidence she's one of the only survivors in Season 1, she retreated to the light cruiser with the wounded Mandalorians just in time, and if you think back to Chapter 21, it also makes the scene in the Forge on Navarro ring differently. The way she made Bo remove her helmet, the plan was to lure her into the trap on Mandalore. She does mention how the Creed is pointless in such small numbers, and maybe in a twisted way, she still secretly blames Bo for the fall of Mandalore, even though Bo explained herself in this recent episode. Another possibility is just as Bo-Katan tried to make a deal with the ISB in order to protect Mandalore, maybe this time the Armourer made a deal with Moff Gideon to protect her covert, in exchange for bringing Bo-Katan and Din Djarin to him. Another compelling theory is that the Armourer wants Bo-Katan out the way so that she can tame the Mythosaur. She understands how important that is. She might see Bo-Katan as a threat to leadership with the Darksaber, and so she wants her out the way. That's another theory. Oh my gosh guys, I loved this episode. Or is it Axe Woves, as many of you pointed out, who this entire time could have been working for Gideon? Him and the other Night Owls returning to Bo-Katan could have been a ruse. After all, they did become mercenaries after abandoning her. Maybe the money was too good to resist from the Empire, and he doesn't care about Mandalore anymore. I guess we're gonna find out next week, but something is very off. Moving on, Chapter 23 also had tons of callbacks to the sequel trilogy. I broke them down in full in my Chapter 23 breakdown, but one aspect that got me super excited were the Praetorian Guards. 25 odd years down the timeline, Supreme Leader Snoke had 8 of them, divided into 4 pairs, each one brandishing unique weapons, and these were known as the Elite Praetorian Guards, and Brendol Hux, the father of Armitage Hux in the post-Return of the Jedi timeline, is not only responsible for Snoke, but was also responsible for the recruitment and overseeing of training of the Praetorian Guards, 3 of which were sent to help Moff Gideon. But one thing to note is there are many differences between the Praetorians of The Last Jedi and the ones earlier in the timeline in The Mandalorian. For one thing, their helmets are Mandalorian, whereas in the sequel trilogy they're very different. This, as Jon Favreau teased with other aspects that connect to the trilogies, shows evolution and change over time, and a possible upcoming battle between the New Republic and Thrawn and the Remnant will inevitably lead to change of availability of materials and equipment. For instance, these Praetorians probably use Beskar, but by the time of The Last Jedi, their helmets are made of plastoid. If our heroes defeat Moff Gideon and retake Mandalore in the next episode, availability of Beskar for outsiders and adversaries is 0, and Beskar is already so rare after the Purge. The Remnants might have started out with this design, but later changed in the early years of the First Order. A second big difference is their fighting style. Say what you will about The Last Jedi choreography, the Elite Praetorians of Rian Johnson's movie had several fighting styles that were not included in the Mandalorian episode, or various combat and martial arts styles. Teras Kasi for Force Sensitives, Bakuni Hand, Narkanji, and more. At this stage in the timeline, their training is pretty much direct sword combat and that's it. There isn't the sophistication that the later guards have, but this could also be due to the type of enemy. Pacifist was already shot, and not a Force Sensitive with a lightsaber like Kylo or Rey. So the way they fought in The Mandalorian could be an efficiency thing, and by the way, rest in peace Paz Vizsla. I love this scene. There is so much about this Mandalorian episode that is worth talking about. Now today we also have some Star Wars news. The first on the agenda is confirmation from the Skeleton Crew exclusive trailer at Celebration that one of the kids in that show is a young Ortolan, the same species as Max Rebo. This is such an original idea, and this trailer blew fans away. No one expected it to be of this quality. Moving on from the TV shows, we also have some Star Wars movie news, following all of the big reveals at Star Wars Celebration. Now, there were some mixed reactions to some of the news, especially concerning the Rey film, but unanimously the fandom was delighted to hear that Dave Filoni is helming one of the upcoming 3 films, and his movie is set in the Mandoverse, post-Return of the Jedi, a kind of culmination, a climax, that incorporates all of the big shows in the Mandalorian story. So that's The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, The Ahsoka show, Skeleton Crew, maybe some more if we get them, but when the news broke, fans were hoping this would lead to a sort of retelling of Heir to the Empire. Now, following the Ahsoka trailer, and big spoiler warning, warning the most recent episode of The Mandalorian, this seems to be the case, to some extent. More and more signs point towards ideas from the Zahn trilogy, the original expanded universe books, being adapted with these characters, and Timothy Zahn himself has advised on Thrawn for the Ahsoka show, so very good news there. But today, The Hollywood Reporter have announced when we can expect this film, as well as Charmin Obaid-Chinoy's new Jedi Order film. Now, while they do say that Kathleen Kennedy is going to leave it open as to which film is going to drop first, sources close to The Hollywood Reporter say that the Rey film is dropping first in December of 2025, and Dave Filoni's movie, which is unrelated, is dropping a year later in December of 2026. If this is true, then by then, you would assume we would have had about 4 seasons of The Mandalorian at the very least, maybe 5, let's wait and see, you never know how long they're going to leave it between seasons, a season or 2 of the Ahsoka show, Skeleton Crew, and maybe Book of Boba Fett season 2, so that movie is going to round up this phase of the story. So if this rumour is true, and take this rumour with a pinch of salt, then the Filoni Mandoverse movie comes out in 3.5 years. In other Star Wars news, I want to talk a bit about the fandom and the overall reaction, the temperature in the room following all of the reveals at Star Wars Celebration. This article from Variety is very interesting, how Rey's return and a tired Mandalorian season riled up the fandom at Star Wars Celebration. I'm just going to skip forward to the meat and potatoes. They say, if you need a reminder that sometimes fandoms can be good, Star Wars Celebration is it. A very true statement. I was there and it was incredible to see all of the cosplays, meet all of the fans, see their passion for toys, games, movies, TV shows, art. Star Wars fans express their fandom in a variety of ways. Fandom takes on many forms, but those who were there wanted to celebrate the franchise they love without all of the drama, all of the politics, all of those things that unfortunately caused division. They say arguably the biggest announcement at Star Wars Celebration this year was the return of Daisy Ridley's Rey, who will be rebuilding the Jedi Order in one of the 3 new films. The reaction to the reveal in the room was electric, but some fans remain mixed on the idea and others are not happy. I think to a lot of fans who didn't like the sequel trilogy, this news is a bit of a downer. They don't want to see more of the character, they don't want to see more of this era with these stories, but in my opinion, and this is just me, it's a beacon of opportunity with new writers, new directors, to show us more of her story further down the line, 15 years in the timeline after the rise of Skywalker. I think that can be really exciting, because you have some new adversaries. Kathleen Kennedy talked about the struggles and the disarray of the Jedi at this time. There are so few of them, and all the things Rey is up against, so it's a very different kind of story. I'm very happy for Daisy Ridley, and again, this is coming from someone who was disappointed with the rise of Skywalker. I didn't see this news as a bad thing. Naturally, I was more drawn to Dave Filoni's film, but that does not mean that Charmin Obaid-Chinoy's film's gonna suck. I'm not saying that whatsoever. But Variety seem to think that the fandom is at best lukewarm, and at worst, a bit exhausted with it. How that movie performs is gonna be interesting to see. There's also a sentiment I've seen online quite a lot, is that there's a comfort for fans who didn't like the sequels, that Rey could be redeemed. For those fans who think she needs it, I'm not saying she does, but to a lot of fans who didn't like those films, this is that opportunity for the character. I'm so happy to see Daisy back though, and now that she's had other acting experiences outside of Star Wars, she can bring that experience and maturity to the role better than ever before. I've also seen fans who didn't like 7, 8 and 9, but who didn't like some of the Disney Plus shows even more, so for those fans, it's a better alternative. And so finally, my dear friends, Rick Famuyiwa has confirmed the Mandalorian title has moved beyond the scope of Din Djarin. This is something all fans suspected, and with him captured in the last episode, they're going to try and help him escape. But the show is about the people of Mandalore, Bo-Katan, Grogu, all of them. And with 1 episode to go, how is the season going to end? And what will be our perception of the show when all is said and done? Are they going to unite Mandalore? Is Din going to escape? What's going to happen? Share your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. May the Force be with you always.